Hey, what's doing all? How is everyone doing? Ninernut's back. It's been a bit. If you're losing your mind in this 49ers offseason, don't lose your mind. If you didn't lose your mind, then it's a really good thing. I give you some credit because, to be honest with you, at first, I think we all were sort of kind of trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. But I got to admit, over the last couple of days, I've had a lot of days to think about what's going on. And as I've posted this before, I do not think this is a rebuild. In fact, it is not a rebuild at all. Someone asked me, what is your definition of a rebuild? A rebuild is when you clean house from start to finish and you leave very little of the remnants of the past and you're going full blast rebuild. Now, while a lot of teams don't like to admit this because obviously it wouldn't be good for their fan base, especially this fan base, and it wouldn't be good for the ticket buyers and the ticket holders, I think that there's a lot of evidence that shows it's not a rebuild. One thing that I've looked at over the last couple of days is, again, when you rebuild, a complete rebuild, like the New England Patriots did the last 2 years or have been trying to do, okay? For the most part, it doesn't work out, right? For the most part, you have a 4-13 year, maybe a 5-12 year. Sometimes you get a little better than that. It also depends too who your head coach is, who your owner is, who your GM is, the players you bring in, the players you leave out, what your salary cap is. So I think that what usually happens in a rebuild year is the team acquires a large amount of draft picks for the most part, and uses a lot of. From the New England Patriots standpoint, what they were doing is building through the draft and using a lot of these young players and signing some guys here and there, nothing crazy, and kind of you knew that they were going to be in a rebuild situation as we saw the last season. But to be fair, I think that the good thing about their rebuild was the Drake May effect and the fact that he played really well as the season went on. And now going into the future with a new head coach, you're going to see them improving over and over. So sometimes a rebuild takes more than one season, okay? You can't just get rid of everybody. It's possible, but it takes a while to assemble the roster you want. That depends on how many picks you have in a draft, how much cap money you have, a lot of things, right? The turnover sometimes is takes 1 year, 2 years, whatever. This is not a rebuild for San Francisco. If you look at the guys they got rid of, if you really analyze who they got rid of closely in taking in stats, taking in injuries, games missed, and being objective and taking in how important they were for the 49ers in the last couple of years, especially a guy like Deebo Samuel, right? I think that time and tide, right? Time and tide is what it's about. It was time. Where are you? And what's going to happen going forward? I think that a lot of guys they parted ways with was very understandable, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to break down just real quick for anyone who, obviously a lot of people who have been following the news, know who was gone. So, of course, we all know Deebo was traded to the Washington Commanders, what was it now, 2 weeks ago, for a 5th-round pick. To be fair, honest, and objective, originally it was supposed to be for a 5th-round pick and Jonathan Allen. Okay, here's the thing about that. Jonathan Allen, who's a tremendous defensive tackle, missed 9 games last year with an injury. So he only played in 8 games. He's also 30 years old, which is not old, but I think that they want to go younger up front because, to be fair, Malik Collins is over 30. Javon Hargrave was over 30 as well. And I think Leonard Floyd just about was 30 years old. Again, not old, but they need to get younger. And Malik Collins didn't have that bad a year whatsoever. Javon Hargrave was really good 2 years ago. He missed all last year with a triceps injury, of course, right? Or most of last year. So I felt that they could have gotten more for that trade. I mean, obviously that was a negotiation. Obviously, Debo wanted out. I think Debo wanted to be more of a stretched the field type of receiver that we've seen him be in the past, and when he is, he's very valuable. But again, that's not the offense he was in. And to be fair, we have stretched the field receivers if you think about it, okay? I think Ricky Pearsall really showed a lot of talent and growth at the end of the season. They had him throwing the ball. They were using him in the Debo packages, and we saw him stretch the field, and likely so because of his height, because he's been playing a little longer. I mean, he's going to be 25 years old, so hopefully the experience will catch up to the talent, right? Jawan Jennings had a monster season last year, led the 49ers in receiving, was just a little bit shy of 1,000 yards, has really stepped up to be a clutch receiver. Brandon Ayuk is the question mark. Coming back from a tenacious injury like that, we have to hope that he can become what he was once again. Okay, and then of course you have the best tight end in football in George Kittle. You have, you've got Cowing, who hopefully turns into something. So again, I think the Debo trade was inevitable. I don't care what anyone says. Like I said, maybe he didn't like the way he was being utilized. He is 29 years old. He plays the game tenaciously, which caused him to miss a lot of games because of injury. I mean, Debo was a once in a lifetime type player. Not a lot of guys play the way he does. So yeah, he will be missed. But I think we didn't get full value for him. Personally, I thought they were going to get more, maybe a 4th-round pick, maybe a 6th-round pick. I was hoping for multiple picks. Not getting Jonathan Allen was a blessing, because then you get him and you have to acquire his contract. And as we know, that really wouldn't have worked the way things are going right now as we speak. Okay. Players released: Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, Kyle Juszczyk hurt the most, Leonard Floyd, and Tabor Pepper. Look. Here, what I can say is, Hargrave, I thought, played well 2 years ago. I thought the contract they gave him was just overrated when we signed him. I thought that was just crazy amounts of money for a guy who was already over 30. And then, of course, last year, the injury to the triceps, which, of course, you can come back from. But I think it's more a matter. Hargrave, again, was integral, I think, 2 years ago when we got to the Super Bowl. But I think that sometimes, guys have an injury and it starts, I think, depending on the injury, yeah, you can come back from a torn triceps. You can. I know there were rumors that he was going to try and suit up and play, which a lot have done. But at that position, it's really hard. I think his contract was ridiculous, and that's half the reason why he got released. Okay, that's just my opinion on that. Malik Collins, look, I thought for everything, I thought Malik Collins filled in well. I don't think he did a bad job. He is, I believe, 30 years old. Just looking at the roster a little bit. Malik Collins, Hargrave was 32, is 32. Malik Collins was 30, is 30. And both of their contracts, okay, count as cap hits. So releasing them hurt us too. But I think it was better to do it now than later. I thought Collins filled in well, filled in admirably. In fact, I thought he overachieved, to be honest with you. I thought especially as the season went on. But again, here's the problem, okay? And this is not Collins' fault per se. The defense couldn't stop the fucking run. Anytime we can't stop the run, we don't do well. We also did not generate enough pressure on quarterbacks all season long. We had the Nick Bosa show. Leonard Floyd did have about 8 or 9 sacks, but it wasn't consistent. In fact, I felt that Bosa, of course, was the only consistent one in terms of rushing the quarterback for the most part. And a lot of times he would get double teamed, which really made things worse because other than him, who else was a legit pass rushing threat? Not many. That's just what I saw out of that, okay? Look, Juszczyk, a shock to everybody. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. But I saw a gentleman on Instagram, I don't remember his name, but he had a really good point to this. He says, when you think about it, Juszczyk's been there for 9 years. Okay. In fact, he was one of the first free agents that I believe Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch signed when he came over from Baltimore. And for you couldn't have done more than he did. I mean, the offense, the running, especially the running offense, does not tick if Juszczyk's not there. In fact, and anyone who's followed me and heard me complain about this the last couple of years, it's one of the knocks I have on the Shanahan offense, because I am objective, even though I love Shanny. They did not utilize him enough in the passing game as a receiver. He's a great receiver out of the backfield, and I think if you would have added that element to the offense, it would have helped things a lot more, instead of using him primarily just as a blocker, which wherever he goes, I'm sure that it's either going to be that way or they're going to stretch him a little bit. I think, again, he's in great shape. The guy is, 32, whatever he is. He's the best fullback in football. So losing him is horrible. I don't know who they're going to have back there. Right now, it looks like the signing of Luke Farrell from Jacksonville, who a lot of people are up on. Listen, I haven't seen enough tape on Luke Farrell, so I have to see him play in live time, just to be honest. But the Juszczyk release absolutely hurt. I personally thought that they were going to try and restructure his contract and get him back for cheaper. Obviously, that did not happen. I thought that was, I know that had happened once before. I don't believe these stupid rumors about, fights with his wife fighting with another player's wife. I think that's such nonsensical bullshit, and I really hope that's not true. I doubt it. But losing him really hurts, because he was one of the heart and soul, one of the pure heart and soul of that team. So that's a move I didn't approve of. That's a move I question. The other two so far, I could understand. Leonard Floyd, you know what? To be honest with you, here's the problem with Leonard Floyd. Again, a very good talent, but he's not an every down defensive end. Leonard Floyd is a lot better when you put him in pass rushing packages or pass rushing situations, or when you space him out if you're playing that type of defense where he can be an outside linebacker and, come in and put pressure on that. Because other than that, he's not a run stuffer. So I thought that when they signed him, I believe the contract was 2 years, $20 million. I was a little shocked by the move last year because it seemed rather quick, and it didn't seem like a direct step up or improvement to the defensive line coming into the season. Because let's face it, 2 years ago, with Chase Young on one side, Bosa on one side, Javon Hargrave on the inside, even though that some of those guys didn't play as great as they didn't play great in the playoffs, I think that defensive line was much better than the one we had this year. And obviously, talent-wise, it makes a big difference, right? So again, I understand letting Leonard Floyd go too. Okay, I don't think his release counted for anything against on the dead cap. Although I'm looking it up right now, I don't see anything. Let's see. No, doesn't look like he was a dead cap hit. So that was a good thing. And who else? Tabor Pepper, he's a long snapper. I don't know. Maybe they wanted to go with somebody with more experience. Maybe that had to do with Jake Moody. I really couldn't tell you there, man. I'd be bullshitting if I could tell you, but I can't. So they did get John Weeks from the Houston Texans, who, as I've read, is a very well-experienced long snapper. Again, a very important position. It gets overlooked a lot of the times, but it shouldn't. Let's see who else. Players who signed elsewhere: Jalen Moore, Elijah Mitchell, Talanoa Huffnager, Aaron Banks, Joshua Dobbs, Shavarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, Isaac Yiadom, and Brandon Allen. Okay, look, Jalen Moore. Let's call the spade a spade here. Jalen Moore was a backup tackle. Okay, no loss there. I thought this year he started to show a little bit more, but I think overall they had higher hopes for him, and it just didn't pan out. Good luck to him in Kansas City. I don't know if Kansas City expects him to start there. I couldn't see that happening, but I don't know. Maybe the guy gets a lot better in the offseason, and is in a better system. But I could understand the Jalen Moore release. The Elijah Mitchell release going to the Chiefs. All due respect to Elijah Mitchell, who I thought was a extremely valuable part of the offense when he came in as a rookie, getting 925 yards in his rookie season. Ran the ball really tough, mature for his young age. Unfortunately, got hurt. It's a 1-year, $25 million contract, I believe he got from Kansas City, which is ridiculous. I'm sorry. Okay? Yeah, wish you good luck, man. And that's a mixed backfield over there between Isaiah Pacheco. They just re-signed Kareem Hunt. They have Carson Steele. So it's one of those hamster wheel type things of running backs that they're going to have over there. Next man up, and I don't know. Maybe that works for him. I thought at one point after his rookie season he could potentially be the 49ers long-term running back. But then, of course, the great trade for Chris McCaffrey kind of put that on the shelf. Talanoa Huffenega, look, it sucks, right? It sucks. I think you have to look at this one 50-50, meaning 50% saying it's terrible. He was like a young Troy Polamalu. 2 years ago, he was an all-pro. The guy's like a missile out of there. He's so talented. 100% agree. But then the other 50% tells me the injuries, right? Last year, it was the wrist injury and the surgery. The year before that, another injury. So, the way he plays the game is very tenacious. So you wonder in the long term, are the injuries going to keep going? And, he was going to get a lot of money anyway. And he landed in a place that he's probably going to do damage in Denver. I mean, Denver, if you know anything about the Broncos, for as long as I can remember, they love their defensive players. He also did not count for a hit against the cap. Okay. But again, you don't want to lose a guy like that. But I get it. Aaron Banks is the one I didn't want to lose. Now, a lot of people are going to argue with me with that because he did have a great season. But I thought that Aaron Banks was an extremely talented player for his size. He had strength. I thought he had a nice little nasty streak of him in him. He got a shitload of money in Green Bay, man. And, that team just gets better and better, especially with Josh Jacobs back there. I think that's a great move. And again, I don't think we were going to pay him that type of money. It's the position we're in right now. But I would have loved to have kept him. That's another one I didn't want to lose. So far for me, it's Jusek and him that I really didn't want to lose, and then after that, it's Joshua Dobbs. Well, look, I liked him a lot. I thought he served his purpose as a backup. Backup quarterbacks in this league are, while very important, they're also, it's window dressing. There's always a backup quarterback, a different guy, a different person there. So, talented guy, man. 2 years ago, he was a starter in Minnesota and Arizona. I thought he held his own. I thought he's very mature. I think he's really cerebral. He has good feet. But look, he got the chance to go somewhere else. He's in New England. He's not going to start there, but I guess he could give Drake May a little bit of knowledge. He is, obviously he's about 5 or 6 years older than him. So, yeah, kudos to him, man. Shavarius Ward to the Colts. That's another 50-50 one for me. Look, I thought he played outstanding in his time in San Francisco. In fact, I think he was undervalued around the league. But unfortunately, the guy had a catastrophic year last year. The unfortunate death of his daughter. I understand. Maybe the guy just needed a change of place because there was too much emotional stuff with San Francisco. I can understand that. And he goes to the Colts, which, to be fair, isn't really a bump in the up direction because they're still trying to figure out what exactly they are offensively in terms of Anthony Richardson. But I think that they're on their way to getting better, and having a veteran like him in that defensive backfield is definitely going to help. And he got paid. He got a bank. He got a bag and a half. Dre Greenlaw. Okay, you talk about the 600-pound elephant in the room. Let's break this down for a second, okay? Nobody played with the tenacity that Dre Greenlaw played with the last couple of years in football. No one played with the nasty streak on San Francisco as much as Dre Greenlaw did. And I think he's a throwback to the game in the 90s and the early 2000s. And I think every team should have a guy like that who brings that type of grit, especially to a defense and especially to a linebacker position. The injuries, look, the Achilles tendon injury is one of those things that the technology now, they can repair it quickly, but it takes at least a year and a half to get back to where you are. And I know you could say, well, yeah, Aaron Rodgers was back. True. But it's a different position, right? I mean, a guy like that who plays with that intensity is all over the field constantly. And he only played really, 1.5 games this year and had more injuries. I don't think they were related to his leg. But I think it was a thing of, do I pay this guy a lot of money and then he comes in and gets hurt again or plays in 8 games and then we're on the hook, especially with trying to pay Brock Purdy and other guys, or do I let him test the market? And look, to be fair, that's the way things work out with the market. I mean, Denver gave him a bag. Denver gave him a big bag. And to be fair, Denver's taking a chance on him because of the injury. If everything works out, that will be a phenomenal defense now with Huffenegger, with Dre Greenlaw, with Benito, with all the guys they have there under Sean Payton. I mean, they're building a dynasty in Denver. Hell, they were pretty damn good last year for what they had. Imagine where they'll be now if all these guys come together and are healthy. So, it sucks that he had to go, but again, I think it was the money factor. I really do. I can't see why you wouldn't have re-signed him. Isaac Yiadom, I can never get his name right, and Brandon Allen. Once again, window dressing. Isaac Yiadom, I mean, nothing against him, but I not bad, but I think they're expendable. Him and Brandon Allen were expendable. We saw Brandon Allen start one game against Green Bay. Not bad. He's a backup quarterback. He's in Tennessee. God knows what their quarterback thing is going to be. I mean, it's catastrophic. I don't think anyone has an idea what's going on there. So he joins that madness over there. But again, expendable. Okay. Players re-signed, right? Patrick Taylor Jr., I like that move. I thought he runs really hard. He's a big, strong running back. When they called on him this year, he did what he was supposed to do. I would have liked to have seen him get the ball a little more. This is just a thought. I wonder if they're going to move him to fullback. I don't know. I doubt it. It's just a thought because of his size. Kevin Givens missed a lot of time last year, although had his best season, 2 years ago. He's a veteran. He's a solid defensive tackle. Hopefully he comes back from injury. One of the moves I loved the most was the Jordan Mason tendering for a second-round draft pick. Very smart on the part of George Lynch. Thinking about the Lakers years ago, drafting him from North Carolina. John Lynch. I think Jordan Mason had a phenomenal season. I mean, we owe him a lot. He almost cracked 1,000 yards. For a guy who was never drafted, he's extremely talented. I'm surprised that the rest of the league did not come after him to sign him more hardcore. Thank God this tender puts an end to that, because I think with McCaffrey, with him, with Isaac Ariando and Patrick Taylor, and whoever else they may or may not draft at running back, they have a nice combination of running backs. And I think that Shanahan really likes Jordan Mason a lot, because, as you know, Shanahan loves his running backs just like his dad did in Denver. Curtis Robinson, they re-signed to 1 year. They're big on him. He played sparingly last year. Maybe he'll fill in where Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles was. Who knows? But he was re-signed. And then, of course, the free agents that we did sign were Luke Farrell, 3 years for $20 million. To be honest with you, I'm not in the front office there, but $20 million for 3 years for a backup tight end is a bit hefty. That's all I'm going to say. It's a bit hefty. Richie Grant, 1 year deal. Richie Grant's been a really good safety. He has a nice little nasty tenacity to him. I think he'll fill in well here and add something to that defensive backfield. Another good veteran. Luke Gifford, they signed for 1 year. That's new. I didn't even see that one till now. I don't know where he's going to fill, and I guess they're trying to just add some backups to that linebacking corps. Demarcus Robinson, 2 years, $9 million. Good move. Demarcus Robinson is exactly what you see on the field. He's not a receiver that's going to get you 80 catches for 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. He's a long ball wide receiver who can stretch the field, sort of a gadget player who I think for the most part will fill in well here. Again, adding more to that deep ball threat for this team. Trey Brown, I think, is going to work out well if he could stay healthy. I like that move, trying to add more depth to that defensive backfield, along with Jason Pinnock, who had a pretty good year in New York last year. He's a bit of a nasty streak. I like his tenacity. So I like those two moves right there. Mac Jones and John Weeks. Look, you know what? A couple of years ago, I wanted Shanahan to draft Mac Jones, and now they got him as a backup. And for the most part, while his best year was his rookie year and he sort of descended downward, I thought that his time in Jacksonville, he didn't become elite, but he became a little bit more decent. And if he can just be the backup quarterback, I think that's just fine because I think he's cerebral enough to just make an understanding of the offense and deliver the ball where he has to. I'm not expecting him to go out and throw for 400 yards a game, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, or run for 67 and 70 yards per game because I don't think that's in him. We talked about John Weeks being signed for 1 year, a new snap. But look, a lot of these guys are not signed for long-term contracts. In fact, Luke Farrell is 3 years, $20 million. Grant is 1 year. Gifford's 1 year. DeMarcus Robinson's 2 years. I don't know what Trey Brown was. Jason Pinnock is a year. Jones is 2. John Weeks is 1. So some of these 1-year guys were kind of renting, I guess you could say, to see where they can potentially play or fill in or help out. Now, I don't know if these guys are going to turn into long-term starters. Couldn't tell you that. I think what's going to happen is they're going to see who they can draft, what they're going to do with the draft, and then kind of match it up next to these guys and see who goes where. Because right now, if we look at that roster for what it is, I think that I saw a good post about this. The core players are still there. Even I had this in my post. Purdy will get re-signed. McCaffrey will be back as healthy, so that's 2. Kittle, Jennings, Trent Williams. We said McCaffrey, right? Ayuk. Okay, so that's 6. And then if you consider on the defensive side of the ball, just looking at what's there now, it's Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, D. Winters will probably be the other starting linebacker. And then the way I'm thinking about it is Ricardo Green earned his starting position this year. I think you'll usually see, unless they make some type of move there, alongside Diamador Lenore with Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa. Now, for all things, I don't think that's terrible. But the most important thing is that the core players are there. And the other important thing is Robert Saleh is back. So it's not a rebuild. You can't really call that a rebuild. If Purdy didn't sign here and they traded him, then I'm calling it a rebuild because now I don't even know where we're going from there. If I think it was Ryan Clark, I don't know what he's smoking, but he was talking about that he would trade Christian McCaffrey right now. Why? First of all, what value were you going to get for him after he just had the injury that he had? It's not going to be what you want, so you're going to give him away because you're doing this silly thing. And what are you going to get back? 2 or 3 draft picks, probably 1 not even in this year. Forget that. What we need now is equity and from this upcoming draft. We have 11 to 12 picks. So that they're looking to plug people in, at least some for this year, mostly for next year. Okay. At the same time, they're looking to cut down on the dead weight around this salary cap because right now they've got $77 million in dead cap and they're number 1, and that sucks. Okay, $43 million in cap space. Now, of course, Fred Warner, $29 million, Kittle, $22, Trent Williams, $21, Bosa with $20, Ayuk with $11, Gross Matos getting $9. Okay, so the core guys are there. On talking and looking at Yetur Gross Matos, okay, there's a guy who really has to step up this year. He was injured a good chunk of the year. They had high hopes for him. He played really well in Carolina. That's a guy who has to contribute, okay? Also, too, let's see. Colton McKivitz, right now, I guess, is the starting right tackle, unless they draft somebody else, which I'm sure they will, to compete with him. Again, you're not paying him a lot of money. I mean, it's $5 million. So I'm wondering, are you just keeping him there because another year? He's got the experience. Again, Colton McKivitz sometimes looks really good. Sometimes he doesn't. He kind of reminds me of McGlinchey a little bit. Jawan Jennings, Jake Brendel. Jake Brendel's been the guy that everyone's been shitting on. And to be fair, he didn't have a great season this past year. So again, I'm wondering, are they going to draft a center also in this upcoming draft? I mean, we'll have to see. And then, of course, Jordan Elliott, they kept him from last year. You know, he's a space eater. Spencer Burford is a guy that really has to explode this season, okay? This is his third or fourth year. He's really got to explode with us. Pearsall, another guy who is going to be curious to get something out of is Drake Jackson. Two guys who I need to see more out of is Drake Jackson, right? And I also need to see more out of Robert Beal Jr. Now, these were guys that were drafted with expectations of becoming something. They were really high on Drake Jackson, and he starts out wonderful and got hurt. I think he had, what do you have? Didn't he have 3 sacks in one game 2 years ago? Robert Beal Jr., I know coming into the year, there were concerns about him coming into the NFL. But according to what I saw and read from the tape, they said that his talent, outshined everything else. But I don't know, maybe he hasn't had enough time on the field, or maybe it's just not working out. So we really got to, I think, be grateful for the rookies that are playing good right now. Mustafa, Ricardo Green, another year under their belt. D. Winters, I thought, earned the startership last year. I mean, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Dre Greenlaw in the tenacity and the way he plays. So, even Pearsall, like I said before, has to take a big monster step forward. And unless they draft another wide receiver, which I don't think is going to happen, what I'm thinking is the starters are going to be Pearsall, Jennings, and, of course, Ayuk, which for all intents and purposes is not a bad thing. Because when Debo was not in there this year, we saw Jennings really take over. And even when Debo was being used primarily as the gadget receiver and not the stretch the field wide receiver, we saw, without Ayuk, we saw Jennings and Pearsall really step up, and we saw Pearsall get better as the season went on. So obviously, Shanahan sees a lot of light for him for the future. And again, he's a first-round pick, so you've got to play him. I don't know why you drafted him if you're just going to sit him on the bench. It doesn't make any sense. The height, he's got the reach, he's got the talent. So, I can't blame them for putting him in this position now. My concerns are, as of right now, the defensive front line. Because last year it was a disaster. We couldn't stop anybody. And like I said before, we weren't generating sacks. We have got to build and help Bosa more. We have got to find another monster defensive tackle. And to be fair, I don't think that has happened at all yet. And I was kind of, I was kind of hoping that they would do something in this offseason to really bolster that defensive line. But obviously money was an issue. But at the same time, I don't think there's anyone out there that I saw that was an absolute wrecking ball stud to sign monster money to. And a couple of teams did that. But again, I think that they were kind of filling in gaps or just kind of adding someone else, okay? Because we don't have a lights-out defensive tackle right now. And that's really weird for us because the last couple of years, I think that with respect to last year, I think that that's been a staple. In fact, I don't think we've had a wonderful defensive tackle since we had DeForest Buckner. Okay, that was always something I've been critical of that move because I thought that he brought another element to the game that was not of this world, and he's doing it in Indianapolis. And I thought him and Bosa worked wonderfully together. In fact, we don't have defensive tackles that are absorbing offensive linemen to give Bosa more help. In fact, it looks to me that it's getting harder for him. He's getting doubled. It's already bad enough that he gets abused every game in terms of penalties against him that aren't called. So that's where we're at right now as a whole. But again, this is not a rebuild. I don't know where that came from. I don't know. I think a lot of these narratives, a lot of these people are just these news outlets are running with because they feel that, what are they doing? But John Lynch said we had to get younger, right? And we had to, which I understand because think about it. Some of the guys you got rid of were over 30. Jusek, Hargrave, Malik Collins, Joshua Dobbs was over 32 as well. I meant. So I understand the move. And then some of the other guys you got rid of had injury problems. Okay, I love Debo. I thought Debo is probably reminds me of Hines Ward a little bit, but a more tenacious. He's very rare that a wide receiver plays with that tenacity. But he did have a lot of injuries because of the way he plays this game, and he just wasn't getting utilized. Either he wasn't getting utilized because that was the offense, or I guess they felt they had other people to do it. I don't really know. I'm not Shanahan. Okay. Huffenegger and Greenlaw, they just happened to get big bags, and Aaron Banks. Big bags. Can't compete with that. And even I think if we could, it would have been terrible. I hate to say. I mean, I don't want to pit one against the other. But if I had to pick out of those three, um, I probably either would have went with Dre Greenlaw or Aaron Banks. But that's not the situation we're in. So again, what's the good? We have draft picks coming up, draft picks galore. And I like some of these guys they signed. I don't think they're terrible. I think that they're can fill in admirably. I think that I don't know if they're starters. I don't think so. I don't know if Penix is a starter. I don't know if Trey Brown's a starter. I mean, it's possible. Richie Grant could start, but he didn't start a lot last year in Atlanta. I think Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa are going to be the combination there, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think Mustafa played his tail off, and I think Jair Brown took a little bit of a step back. But again, a total rebuild. This is not. If it was a rebuild, they would have gotten rid of McCaffrey. They wouldn't have signed Purdy. You would have seen a lot of other guys go, and I really don't think it's that at all. So I think that we just have to just wait and see is the best thing to do. So don't panic, but let's wait for the draft, see what happens. Remember, Lynch and Shanny have done a pretty good job drafting. For the mistakes that they've made, I think they've always capitalized on it with a lot of talent. Because when you look at the way they've drafted in the past, Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, right? Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, these guys are legit studs. So let's see what happens and just hope for the best. All right, Ninernut is out. Peace, everybody. Don't freak out.